Today, I'm going to show you one of the nastiest traps you can play against the move d6 in the Vienna game. It's aggressive, it's unexpected, and best of all, it works like a charm against players under 1500. We start with the Vienna setup, pawn to e4, black responds with e5 and knight to c3 the Vienna game. If black plays pawn to d6, a very passive move to defend their center, that's when we strike with f4 the Omaha Gambit. Black takes the bait, capturing it. Now you immediately bring your queen to f3. Black now plays their queen to h4 to give you a check. It looks aggressive, but we are completely fine here. You defend the check by pushing pawn to g3, attacking the queen. Then they take with the pawn. They think they're winning material, but they've just opened themselves to an avalanche. Now you recapture using your h-pawn. That opens your rook and starts shifting the initiative in your favor. Black backs with queen to f6. You bring your queen over to g2. We don't want to trade queens for now. Black develops their queen's knight to c6. Here, where you play a key move knight to d5 to attack their queen. They're forced to retreat again, sliding their queen to the back rank. Now you push pawn to b3, making room for your dark square bishop. Black brings out their dark square bishop to e7, developing slowly. You follow up by playing your dark square bishop to b2 onto the long diagonal aimed at their kingside. Then they finally bring out their knight to f6. You castle long, tucking your king safely to the left and preparing an attack on the kingside. Black develops their light square bishop to attack your rook, but you slide your rook to the semi-open e-file. They try to reposition with a knight move toward the center, trying to cover e5 and prepare a c-pawn push. But now you play knight to e3 to put pressure on their bishop. Black slides their queen to d7, adding a defender for the bishop and getting ready to castle long. You now push pawn to d4, opening up more central pressure. They back their knight to c6, and you follow with knight to f3. Now they castle long, but it's already too late. You push your d-pawn one square, challenging their knight. The knight jumps to e5. We take the knight with our bishop and they recapture with pawn. You capture it with your knight, forking the queen and bishop. They check us with bishop to a3 and we just bring our king to b1. They are running out of good moves. They bring their queen to e7 to try and challenge you. Now we continue by capturing the bishop on g4, winning material. This is what the Omaha Gambit is all about. You played the Omaha Gambit, and your opponent pushes their pawn to g5, trying to defend their pawn lead. Let's walk through what happens when they play the most common mistake online. You don't wait, you hit back with pawn to h4. Here the most common move f6 is also a mistake. Here where you strike, you slide your queen over to the edge of the board, giving a check. The king is already in trouble. With no way to block, they step their king over to the left just one square. This walk to d7 is the beginning of the end. What if black plays the engine move in this position? They develop their knight instead of panicking. It looks solid, but you'll still come out better. In this line, you get a clean position, full development, and long-term advantages. Now you shift gears. Instead of going all in, you calmly develop your bishop to b5, pinning the knight. They respond by unpinning the knight with bishop to d7. You capture the knight with your bishop. They recapture with the bishop to keep their pawn structure. Now you bring out your kingside knight to e2. Black takes on h4 with pawn, but now you capture on f4 with your knight and your position is coming alive. Black responds with knight to f6. You push pawn to d3 to support everything. Now black brings their rook to the semi-open g-file, trying to attack, but it's way too early. You calmly develop your dark squared bishop behind your knight, covering the diagonal and preparing to castle. Black prepares castling long by moving their queen to d7. You don't flinch. You castle long, bringing your king to the far left and connecting your rooks. Black also castles long. Your dark squared bishop drops down to e1. Their rook slides over to e8, and now you capture the pawn on h4 with the rook. Black develops their bishop to e7, and we move our king to b1 to defend our pawn. Everything in your camp is safe, coordinated, and ready. Meanwhile, black's pawns are a mess. You've got everything ready to start going after black's isolated pawns. Your king is safe on the left, and your pawn structure is solid. What about if black does not play g5 but instead knight to f6, the second most played line in online chess? It looks natural, solid, flexible, but they're walking straight into a space and tempo disadvantage that they can't get out of. We have to play aggressive, so we start with pawn to d4. They develop their dark squared bishop, aiming for a calm setup. But now you launch e5, hitting their knight and challenging their pawn. They take your pawn, trying to simplify. You attack their knight again by recapturing with pawn. Their knight retreats back and now you strike. Your dark squared bishop captures their center pawn cleanly. You've got a bishop on a central diagonal controlling key squares. Black knight jumps to c5, opening lines for their queen and bishop. Next, your rook moves over d1, putting pressure on the queen. Black continues developing, bringing out their queen's knight to the center, but now they've got three minor pieces fighting for the same squares. It's cramped. You bring your light-squared bishop to the left diagonal, aiming at their kingside. They castle kingside, and now it's time to bring in your final piece. Your kingside knight joins the game, calmly stepping toward the center. At this point, all your minor pieces are out, you are ready to castle, and black is sitting with less space, less coordination, and fewer active plans. Here's another common defensive idea. Black develops the bishop right away, trying to castle quickly. But with the Omaha Gambit, we challenge that plan directly. We respond by pushing pawn to d4, keeping up the pressure. But black throws in an early check with their dark-squared bishop, trying to disrupt your kingside. You block with the pawn to g3, they take it with their pawn on f4, and we recapture with the h-pawn, opening the h-file and keeping everything stable. They back their bishop to g5, and we keep on developing with bishop to c4. They now bring out their light-squared bishop, aiming at your bishop, but you strike back by taking it, and they have to recapture with their f-pawn, weakening their kingside. Now bring your queen across the board for a quick check on the king. They block with pawn to g6. You take their bishop, and they take our queen to keep their kingside safe. We recapture with the bishop, preventing black from castling long. They bring their knight into the game, we do the same. Black pushes pawn to h6 to attack our bishop, but we can ignore this because the pawn is pinned by our rook, so we just push e5. They bring their rook to the center, but you exchange pawns and castle queenside, a strong move that connects your rooks, with both of their bishops gone and a better structure. This whole line proves something big. Even if black tries to slow the game down with early bishop development, Omaha Gambit players stay ahead by attacking accurately and aiming for active endgames. This final line wraps up your Omaha Gambit by showing how to deal with the black's best defense, developing with knight to c6 right after queen to f3. It's structured, it's logical, but you still get a killer position with control, initiative, and better piece activity. You bring your light-squared bishop up right away, pinning their knight. They unpin with bishop. You take their knight, they recapture with bishop, and now you strike the center with your d4. They develop their kingside knight to f6. We bring our other knight to e2. They finish their kingside development with bishop to e7. And now your dark-squared bishop joins the game by taking on f4. Black now castles kingside. Your kingside knight joins in, jumping to g3. They expand with a b-pawn push, trying to unbalance you. Now we push out center pawn one more time, hitting their bishop, and they slide back. Then a patient pawn move h3. Quiet, but now you've got space and safety. They push their c-pawn, you take, and they take back with bishop. You calmly play pawn to a 3. When they expand again with a pawn, you castle kingside. They continue pushing, trying to crack open the queenside with their b-pawn. You respond with knight to d5, offering a trade. They capture your knight, you recapture with pawn. They back their bishop to e7, and suddenly their queenside is cracking. You take their pawn on b4. They recapture, and now you've got an open file and an isolated pawn to go after. Here we just trade rooks, and after they recapture with their queen, you bring your rook right in, stepping to the e-file. They try to match it, and we lift our rook to start going after that isolated pawn. That's the power of the Omaha Gambit. Even against the engine's best move, you get a better position by understanding the ideas, not just memorizing moves. If you liked this, check out the Chess Opening Guides playlist on the channel. I cover underrated weapons, real-world traps, and how to crush under 2,000 with opening prep that works.